there will probably be a time when our civilization is long gone. A time many centuries from now, when people like us find our remnants and everything we left behind and wonder, what was life like when we were around? Today, life is familiar to us with our great struggles and our conflicts and issues. But none of us can fully comprehend the lives of those who lived in Egypt, Greece, and Rome thousands of years before us today. But today, I'm going to embark on a journey into that past to discover at least some of these stories. A grain of history, a drop in the sea, the ocean of time. Today, I will go to the Museum of Antiquities in Leiden to rediscover the past, long gone, and I hope you will embark on this journey with me. So basically today, members of this group called Legio Secunda Augusta are cosplaying as Romans, and might as well interview and ask them what Rome was like, some history, and what we can learn from it. But before I do that, I'm going to visit ancient Egypt. No civilization which exists today even closely resembles that of ancient Egypt. A culture only available to us mostly through just stone, metal, and clay. Nevertheless, I will delve deep into this culture and discover what I can.
You having a bad day, buddy?
Lasting longer than any other civilization, Egypt was united under King Narmer around 3100 BC. Egypt went on as a dominant empire in its region. During the Old Kingdom, the renowned pyramids of Giza, the world's greatest architectural feat, were built. Very few civilizations fascinate me as much as Egypt. One of those is Atlantis. After the collapse of the Old Kingdom, the Middle Kingdom restored order. This peace would not last when a Levantine people, the Hyksos, invaded and conquered Egypt. Egypt's 18th dynasty reunified Egypt and brought the empire to the very pinnacle of its power. One aspect of Egyptian culture that I want to examine more closely is its religion, with its many gods and their roles in Egyptian society. Here is the story of Osiris.
The story of Osiris is a really fascinating one, as written in here. The story of Osiris begins with a tale about the creation of the world. In the beginning, an island rose from the great sea of chaos, and on it, the primeval god Atum appeared. On his own, Atum generated the gods Shu and Tefnut, a brother and sister couple, who produced the siblings Geb and Nut. The four children of Geb and Nut were the brothers Osiris and Seth, and the sisters Isis and Nephthys. In the next part of the story, Osiris is married to Isis and Seth to Nephthys. Osiris was the divine king of Egypt, but his popularity attracted the jealousy of Seth, who trapped his brother in an elaborate chest and threw him into the Nile. Isis then tracked down the body of Osiris, only for Seth to dismember and scatter it around Egypt. Isis, aided by Nephthys, recovered the body of her husband and, by magic, put it back together again and revived Osiris enough to become pregnant by him. Osiris then left Egypt and became the god of the dead. Horus, the son of Isis and Osiris, then became the rightful king of Egypt. However, Osiris's brother Seth also thought that he was the rightful king to inherit the throne.
So these last 6 hieroglyphs on the third column translate to N, Ch, K, Z, K, Nchrzk. So I have no idea what that means.
In ensuing the dispute between Horus and Seth, Isis protected Horus until he was old enough to meet his uncle in combat. When he did so, he defeated Seth and finally gained the throne of Egypt. This myth taught the Egyptians many things: how the world was created, how the gods came into being, and why kingship was so important in ancient Egypt. It also taught how royal succession should be passed from father to son and the importance of being a supportive wife and mother. But for most Egyptians, however, the most important aspect of this story is the promise of an afterlife in a kingdom ruled by Osiris, the dead god and also the god of the dead. This bizarre yet very compelling story was formative in the lives of the ancient Egyptians. Not only that, but a fundamental building block of their culture and civilization, like the Bible was for the West, the teachings of Confucius in China, or the Ramayana in India.
Egypt's preeminence did not last forever. During the 11th and 12th centuries BC, warriors known as the Sea Peoples destroyed the Bronze Age empires which had ruled for centuries. Egypt fell just as the others did. Egypt would later be conquered by foreign powers, first by the Kushites, then the Persian Achaemenids, and finally the Greeks and the Romans.
So these odd characters over here are from the kingdom of Nubia. They were an African kingdom located in modern-day Sudan, so south of Pharaonic Egypt, and for many centuries the Egypts warred with the kingdom. And at some point, I think Nubians took over Egypt and founded a new dynasty in Egypt. So it was pretty cool.
After Alexander the Great invaded and conquered Egypt, for the next 300 years the Egyptians witnessed a blending of their culture with that of the Greeks. And this, my friends, takes me to my next civilization. The Greeks were the forefathers of the Romans, and of the West in general. Their alphabet is mirrored by the Slavic countries today. Their scientific method and Hippocratic oath are revered by our scientists and doctors. And don't forget, their letters and math problems terrify students for centuries. But one thing I cannot ignore is their breakthroughs in art, through their statues, pottery, and figurines. People who passed millennia before us are immortalized by these statues, and their pottery retelling lost stories. These people would later on be revered by the Europeans as the Byzantine Empire, inheriting the Roman legacy and rule until the dawn of the Renaissance. But the original Romans, those we all know and love, came here today to visit us here in life. Now I looked hard for Caesar, Tiberius, or even Nero, but all I found was a young conscript, a nanny, and a virgin. I interviewed them anyway.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is Coelia Concordia, the last of the Vestal Virgins.
Can you explain the history of Vestal Virgins and what we can learn from it?
Well, there were women. There was a priestess order. It has been there. It has been around for about 1,000 years, I guess. They guarded Vestal's flame. They guarded the temple. They did all kinds of ceremonies and all kinds of rituals. But they also did a lot of administration for the city, like wills, emperor's wills. They had privileges like they could drive a carriage through the city during daytime. They sat front row, where all the other women had to sit up there, very far away from where the action was. They were allowed to decide on life or death, hence the axe. Yeah, so if I was somewhere and I saw a convicted criminal and he had a death sentence, I could say, no more, let him go.
They had a lot of influence in liberty.
Yes, they did have a lot of influence, yeah. They were also quite vulnerable because if they were supposed to be virgins.
Well, welcome to the midwife. In Roman times you had different sorts of midwives. You had the little villages with the old woman who knows everything about childbirth and who helps you get along. But as urbanization goes on, you get different categories of midwives. You have the part-time midwife, who is, for instance, also a bartender, who gets a call or a visit from someone who says, "Hey, I need a midwife, can you please come along?" Who grabs her bag with some tools and goes along to the client. And in the big cities like Rome itself or Pompeii, or other big cities, you have the full-time midwife who is there from your first question, "I want to have a kid, can you help me?" to actually delivering the kid and even help you with some advice on lactation for the women. So what I display here is the full-time midwife with all her tools.
Hélène spent a long time explaining all the uses of the different tools. It was quite interesting, as many of these tools are used today for different purposes, like checking cancer, checking inside the womb, and so on.
I think we can learn about midwives and their role in Roman society.
Well, they had actually quite a well. They had a different status, meaning that this was the only job that a woman could perform on her own. Most jobs were done by men, and if a woman did that job, that meant her husband had died and she had sort of took over the family business. She often had a guardian who was okay with her being in that role. This is the only profession a woman specifically could do, and not really have a guardian within the profession taking care of things, because they were like, that's women's business, we men, we don't want to have anything to do with it. So that's the main difference in their role in society.
What can we learn about the Romans today and your contributions?
Well, we can learn lots of things about them. A thing I always especially enjoyed to learn was that the image you get from popular culture is very distinct, like Romans, non-Romans. It's far more complicated. Also, the tribes living during the Roman age in these countries, it's far more complicated than that, and that's very interesting. The more and more you learn about it, the more and more you realize they were just people like us. And that's very interesting.
It's very true.
It was time that the journey ended, as the museum closed at 5. But the lessons I learned on my first journey stay with me. We like to glorify, to romanticize our long-lost brothers and sisters, but few of us truly seem to realize that they were us. Just like us, we will be romanticized by those living centuries from now. In each civilization, people had their way of life. Each had its perks and its flaws. The purpose of exploring the past is to mimic its treasures and to shun its mistakes. What will our civilization be remembered by? What will those of the far future say about what we did? What newer civilization we contributed to? It is for you to decide, for you to take action, and for me to continue on my mission and to embark on my next journey.